welcome to another special episode of the World Gaming Trade Show. I am your host, Jeremy Evans, along with me all the way from Indiana, from the Game Addict podcast.
What's up, guys? This is Brando, and we are here once again for another exciting rendition of the World Gaming Trade Show. This is episode 4?
Episode 4, yeah.
I was right, man. I just took a shot in the dark with that one.
Yeah,
you know, because I mean, the way that we do this, we only do like once a month, and there's to be fair, it's felt like a lot longer than a month since the last time that we sat down to do one of these, and I wanted to make sure that we were still on number 4 and not number 5 or something like that, because quite literally, this has been the longest April of my life.
Right. Yeah.
It's just been nuts, man. But things are going great over here in Indiana. We might be getting back to work in a week, 2, 3, or 4, one of those. How have things been going with you, man?
Man, this been staying busy. You know, I do work right now and, you know, still coming home, you know, staying safe, working on projects, you know, building this network at the In-Game Boss program network, and just always trying to work on new ideas, working with people. You know, just like this show we're doing that we started last year. Well, not last year, early this year, but we had an idea of it last year. Sorry, we had the idea of it last year. And just keep working on projects and keeping yourself busy. And I think it's because we've been so busy, it just feels like it's been a long time. You know, could we record these episodes probably the third Monday almost for every month? And so, but it's exciting because with this show, you know, we pick the games that we select, and then we go away for a long time and just, you know, ponder, like, who would fit this? Where would this go? Who's the developers to make this game? You know, because we pick games based on games that just haven't been around anymore. I mean, when's the last time you heard Comic Zone? When's the last time you heard of Legend of Goon? When's the last time you heard Snatcher? What about Shadowrun? What about Musashi? What about Wing Commander? You know, those are some of the games that we talked about in our last couple of episodes that you should definitely check out. But the fact that our brains have to sit there and think, like, what developers do we think can bring this game back to life and distribute it to the world and see if it can just, you know, make people happy and make people enjoy these series again? Because some of these games are great. It's just, you know, either their time was done and they need to be redone or rebooted, or some are just, you know, they just had a bad luck and they just never got a chance to get another chance at it again, right? Because there's a lot of properties certain developers and studios do, and then, you know, something else come along. It's a hard balance between, you know, keep doing the old ones, but also creating new ones too. Do you agree with that, Brendan?
Oh, absolutely. You know, there was a game that got released on the last generation on the Xbox 360 to PS3 era that may come up in this podcast. I mean, that's a bit newer. I'm trying to not be so new, but there was a game, you know, there was a small little dev company got together. They made the game, and it was awesome. In fact, the guy that started the development company was I'm not sure if he was still a current, but a former Major League Baseball player who had a passion for games. So they made a game, and it did okay. You know, it's a first game, growing pains. But then it was shortly after the release that the dev team, they kind of went bankrupt and they folded, and that was the last thing you ever heard of that game, and there was no update. So there are still some pretty big bugs in the game if you play it today that could wreck your save file. They never got a chance to fix it. Yeah. And it just somebody owns it now. So like they own the IP and may come back around. But you know, this even goes for games that are like way older than just 10 years ago or whatever. This goes for games that are, you know, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and I personally love this idea of a show because this gives me a chance to actually dig deeper and actually go play these games and see, like, if I like it, and just say, this game does need to come back. It's just no one wants to pick up the mantle and do something with it. And it gives me a chance to learn even more history about gaming and learn more cool things about gaming in general, from all the way from Atari to all the way now. But just like this show, we're kind of like, you know, what you would go see in a car show. We're here to come and display this game for you and give you fun facts about it, and then go right into the nitty-gritty of who do we think should make it and what the vision that goes with it. And the best part of all of this is Brendan and I don't know who we picked for our developers. Nope. All right? I don't know what he picked. You don't know what I picked. And that's where it's fun, because then we get to sit there and dissect each other's ideas and see like what works, what might not work, what do we think that could make a huge difference. Maybe there'll be a different developer that we think might be better for it. We just let the conversation fly. But for you listeners, all we want you to do is to sit back and enjoy the show. And if you like what you hear, don't be afraid to leave a comment, concern, thoughts. Maybe you could throw a game at us, and maybe we'll go take a look at that game for you as a bonus episode for you, or a bonus game on the show, you know? And
yeah.
So, but let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and do mine first. You know, my game of choice, because I think your choice of game is a bit of more of a classic than mine. I think a lot of people know about your game. The moment you say it, they'll probably like, oh, I remember that game. I remember this game, that's that and that, because, you know. Anyways, so my game is one of its kind, only one entry in. It was on the NES back in, I want to say, back around 92, about 92, 91 in North America or whatever. And my game is going to be MetalStorm by the publishers Irem. Now, when I threw this at Brendan, when I throw games at Brendan, I don't know what his mind is going through with the choice I tell him. I don't know if he's like, oh, crap, I never played this game before, or like, what is this? So, like, Brendan, when I dropped MetalStorm to you, before I go into more descriptions about it, what did you feel at that time?
I thought it was a little bit out of left field. I wasn't ready for it. Especially, I liked it though because it deviates a little bit from where we have been, which is kind of what I wanted to do too. Get away from, I don't want to say easier picks, but like I have a lot of fondness and memory of a lot of cool games on like the PlayStation, on the original, PS1. So I'm like, all right, so we just did, I did Dragoon, we did Musashi. Okay, let's get away from that because that's easy. I got to look over on my shelf and go, all right, I'm doing this one this week, or whatever, but like, I'm like, no. Let's try and go to another console. Let's try and take it back. And then you throw that one out. I'm like, okay, wow. Yeah, that's one I don't have. And, all right. I remember this. I never played this back in the day.
Okay.
I never played it, but I remember seeing it like on YouTube or somebody's talking about it, GameSack or somebody's talking about MetalStorm. I'm like, okay, I remember this. So of course, what do I do first? Do I look up footage? Eventually, do I look up? But me being the collector guy, I go into Game Eye. I don't know if you've ever heard of this app called Game Eye, but you can get it on both Android and iOS. It's an amazing app for cataloging the games in your collection. And I just look it up. I'm like, all right, what are we going for here? Original NES, loose. This game is going to run you on average about $100. Whew. Loose. That's just cart, guys. That's just a cartridge. Nothing else. You walk into a game store. Oh, hey man, what we got here? Oh, NES game. So, what's that game? $100. When you see $100 sticker on something, that's going to elicit, I have to have this, or it's going to be like, man, that's too rich for my blood.
Yeah. Now, also, too, it's funny you brought that up because limited run games, if you heard of limited run games before, they like to bring out classics and stuff like that. They actually had a special edition for MetalStorm on there, too. And that was ringing around, I think, about like $80, I want to say, for that special edition, too. So, what is MetalStorm? Well, for people that probably remember MetalStorm, it was out during the time, would you say, like the side-scroll shoot 'em up. So, like, kind of like Mega Man. You can say for Power Blade. You can say Shatter Hands. Those are the games where it was all, straight side-scrolling, just shoot what's ever coming at you kind of thing. And MetalStorm was among one of those. Actually, to tell you the truth, it kind of also reminds me a little bit of, I want to say, before the graphical and everything, Metal Slug a little bit, per se, only because of the mech. This is like a giant suit and everything like that. But anyways, so you actually play a machine robot based on, I think it's model 308. And basically the story is Pluto has this giant like laser cannon weapon that's used to take care of space invaders from coming to our solar system. Well, something malfunctioned and it just started wiping out planets, including Neptune was the first thing Earth saw. So they send this robot in, to go in through these 6 stages and take care of the whole base where this thing is going through. And if you watch the footage, Brandon, first of all, this game just yells out like nostalgia right off the bat because the music is so crazy. The graphics is so Castlevania feel like to me, like a Konami Castlevania. And I love the concept of they're using the vertical or the up and down system where you can hang up upside down, flip back and forth and, get through the stages. And some things go upside down with him too. I'm going to call it the gravity ability. Basically, he's, messing with the gravity and everything like that. But your goal is just to go in there and destroy them. Now, these levels are crazy. I feel like to me, the stages is crazy, but the boss fights are not too hard by the looks of it. One of my favorite ones I liked was there was one you're stuck in this box, and it's basically on a rail where, all you got is room in this box, and enemies just come in the box, and you have to shoot everything at it and everything like that. And I like it because, you have to really make sure you go up, upside down, make sure you get out of the way of everything. But I just like it. It was a really cool idea at the time. And I would love to see that definitely again with, more like a budget, more graphical, everything like that. And we got this idea too from, I was trying to figure out who's the first one that actually kind of started the idea. So based on my research, I saw Strider was the first one that kind of started the idea. And then Metal Slug, and then Mega Man 5. Which Mega Man 5 is more familiar to me personally because Mega Man 5, one of the boss fights in there, Gravity Man, one of my favorite Mega Man stages of all time, was like, that was just a brilliant idea. It was just so cool at the time because even though you're upside down, you really have to reimagine your brain to know what you're doing upside down. You can't just play the same style you were before. And I'm a big Mega Man fan. I like Mega Man. My heart stops in the original series after 6. Everything else, I was like, eh. But are you a big Mega Man fan, Brendan?
I do enjoy some Mega Man myself. In fact, I've got the original game on NES. I don't have the full collection. Sorry. I got that for a wedding, not a wedding gift, but a gift that the groom gave to me for being in the wedding. And then I actually do have the original collection and the X collection on PS4.
Okay. Yeah. Were you more of an X or were you more Mega Man, in your opinion?
So, because I came into Mega Man on the Super Nintendo, it's more X. I will say the first couple of X games I like more than the latter ones. Of course, those came out much later on the PS1 and PS2. For the original games, I grew to love them later. I tried them when I was a kid. They're too hard. They're hard now. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking, but I love me some Mega Man.
Okay. Now Strider is the one I never got a chance to really get into. I played the newer Strider games, but I never got a chance to play the original ones. But I heard they were a little challenging. I heard the Sega one was a pretty good one to definitely check out. So that might be something I might go to the back catalog and definitely check out. Were you a Strider fan at all of that?
I think there was one on PS1. Pretty sure there was. Because I remember playing it, renting it, not knowing at all what it was. And then going, well, this is not what I expected from a PS1 game. I mean, granted, it's kind of like, a fancier side scroller. Okay, cool. But other than that one, I didn't play the one like the earliest ones or the arcade. And the only other one that I've played is the one that came out in the more modern consoles. I think about 5 years ago now.
Okay. So why do I want Metal Slug to come back? Well, the reason why I want Metal Slug to come back, not Metal Slug, sorry, Metal Storm. Metal Storm. God, there's so many storms. Okay, anyways, sorry, so many metals everywhere. Metal Gear, Metal Slug, Metal. The reason why I want Metal Storm to come back because we haven't really seen a lot of mech games kind of make a return in this generation. I mean, you have Daemon X Machina that came for the Nintendo Switch last year in September, but we haven't really seen more of mechs in general. I remember Armor Core used to rule the PlayStation 2 and the 3 at the time. and Xbox 360. But ever since there, it kind of started falling down a little bit. Even in the RPG realm. I mean, I have Xenoblade Chronicles and, Xenoblade Chronicle X, which they introduced mechs and stuff, but not full blown just dedicated to mechs and stuff. So who is the developer that I think will work on this? Well, the developer I have are up and coming indie developers, and they have busted out 3 games so far, each in their own way. The reason I brought it up to you the other night, Mr. Brendan, was because I wanted you to check out a game for me, or I was going to buy you the game so you can check it out for yourself, because it's like dirt cheap. But they're basically really good at what they're doing. You could tell that they were definitely inspired by the retro of Nintendo to really put the love they put in there. And the developers is Joy Mashers. Have you heard of them, Brendan?
No, I have not.
Okay. So I actually send you a link on the message thing, and they are known for games like Oniken, that is more dedicated to the Ninja Gaiden, those kind of style kind of games. They had another game called, I think, Addicts, that was dedicated to more of the Castlevania, Super Nintendo era, stuff like that. But the newest game they have came out, and you probably heard it before, Blazing Chrome. That is them, based on the love of Contra. And so, that game looks freaking amazing. So I want them to do a new MetalStorm. I think they can do it. And if you look up Blazing Chrome, I bet you agree, they can do MetalStorm. And I wanted to keep it in 2D because I think 2D is where it's at for it. I don't think we need a full-blown 3D for this one. I think they can flesh this out, make a beautiful art direction for it, and then also continue the story, because just because MetalStorm, we stopped the enemies, not enemies, basically the security death ray that was going to kill us, doesn't mean the space invaders are not coming still. I mean, so they can use that. So my idea for it is I want them to remake this game, but let's go a little bit more in depth with it and go a little bit more over the top with it. And what I mean by it is, in the beginning of MetalStorm, you're already at the base working your way inside. Bump that. I want the fight to start the moment you're trying to get there. So when you're trying to get there, you're the ray shooting at you. You got ships coming. I want you to be going through it. Kind of like, you're playing an Unreal shooter game at first. Shooting your ray, you're flying around like a schnuff kind of game. And then you're landing, and then you're heading to the first stage. Basically give us this great intro. And then also too, with the gravity stuff and all the other stuff, give us upgrade on the weapons that can do cool things. So, give us a gun that can work with gravity. Maybe a gun that can shoot upwards. Use that gravity ability more to your weapons and everything like that. In this game, you normally run, but I would be cool to have a quick dash. I think quick dash would be kind of cool with it. And the boss fights can be even more over the top, where it can feel like a part 1, part 2 to it, where, you're fighting the first part, then he might transform, and then the stage changes. Or even a boss fight where he changes your gravity. So he makes you upside down, or he makes you, go right back up. He switches around you. Kind of like if you played Mega Man 5 and you're going against Gravity Man. He's the one that controls the room. And you have to play by those rules. And so I think that would be a phenomenal idea for this to get rebooted and get reintroduced again, followed by sequels that can lead him to this long voyage of saga of games where he's this standalone hero trying to protect Earth and the solar system. And then, take it from there. Later on, if you want to add multiplayer, you can. I don't care. But I think this is something that can definitely be brought back and really show great things from it. Brendan, what's your take on that?
No, I love that. And it's funny because it's completely opposite from where my idea is taking it.
Yeah.
Keeping it nice, close, and tight-knit to the original, seeing what was it, Joy Masher seeing what Joy Masher did and has done. I typed in Blazing Chrome and instantly I'm like, wow, okay, I see it.
Yeah,
I definitely, I'm able to put into mind exactly what you're saying. In fact, not only could they start it off by reimagining the original, you could you could start off like with something like that is more loyal to it, or maybe even just, hey, you know, on this new game, when you buy MetalStorm, you also get the original MetalStorm. You know,
Hell yeah.
You know, so you got like, hey, you know, this is our souped up version. This is our thing, and we're going to continue on with it, and you know, and do some cool stuff with it. But meanwhile, you get that old school flavor. I mean, it works. It completely works, and it makes me a little nervous trying to pitch mine because mine, I feel like I thought of something like when I imagined it, I thought like, okay, I'm not going to keep it retro because some of the picks that I've put in the past, I'm like, all right, I'm going to kind of keep this close to what it came from, and that's not where I went at all.
That's why I love this show. Can't wait to hear the vision.
All right, so I first off, hats off to you. I think they would do a great job.
Okay, awesome.
And I think that if people got into it and got into the gameplay of it, especially like you said, being able to make, you know, some people don't understand that when you make a game that looks retro doesn't mean that the retro consoles could play a game like what they're packing into it. Right. Because quite simply, you would have all the tools of modern gaming creation to work at your whim with making these really unique level design and boss fights, especially for the retro. But for where I'm going, I watched gameplay, you know, thinking, all right, cool, getting those Mega Man vibes. All right, cool, upside down, and and it's pretty tame until you get to, some levels are kind of crazy, kind of go up and down, up and doing all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, so I could, what if we went in the opposite direction to where it was a little like, what if this was a 3D realm? How would it control? What would you do with it? And there's one developer that instantly came to mind because it made me think, don't take the game that I'm going to throw at you at a one-to-one presentation of what would be. It's what they have done and what they could do with what they learned from this title with MetalStorm. And that is Insomniac Games. Okay, so Insomniac, who are they? Well, they are the ones who developed Ratchet and Clank back in the day. They did the game that instantly, when I'm seeing like different, more stylized 3D platformer with MetalStorm in mind, Sunset Overdrive.
Wonderful game. Wonderful game.
Sunset Overdrive is this open world third person shooter on like mixed with I don't know if you guys ever played not like Tony Hawk, but like the Dreamcast.
Radio?
Huh?
Jet Set Radio?
Jet Grind Radio or Jet Set Radio from the Dreamcast, early Xbox, from Sega. It reminds me of that. That's not so much that I would do that with MetalStorm, but that same and not necessarily super open world, but make the levels more open, more like, say like, when you first get there, you're not in the heart of the base, you're on the outskirts, so you got to get in, and it's 3D. And how cool would it be to play around with those gravity effects on a 3D plane? So it's really going to turn you upside down and on your head, and you got to learn how to aim and configure your guy. So you can have a little bit arcadey, kind of like a Ratchet and Clank. You can kind of be, not be so close tied into, into realism, and obviously not as flashy as Sunset Overdrive. But what we saw with their progression with Sunset Overdrive, and then of course they went into Marvel Spider-Man, they have the capability of making a huge explorable world. We don't necessarily need that here. You can scale it down, but you can make the environments and the level design off of that to where it does feel like a big open plane. I like you can literally go anywhere. You can't. You're on your section of the level, but you can have so many things you can play around with enemy types, level design, going up, down, this and around in the 3D realm. And it would almost kind of remind you in a way of like those, late 90s, early 2000s 3D platformers. Another game that kind of came to mind but it wasn't exactly what I was going for, and which is why I'm not suggesting them. But Recore. Okay. Did you ever play that?
Recore? Yeah. From the company Concept, where actually one of the helpers of the Mega Man series, Kinjay Inafune, he was part of that.
Kinjay Inafune created Mega Man, and he left Capcom, and created concept.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the games that they made was Recore. That's is exclusive for the Xbox One, and I think you can get it on PC. But it is
through PC and Game Pass. So
yep, Game Pass. It's a great game to play. It is Mega Man-esque, 3D Mega Man-esque. Like I don't want to dare I utter the words Mega Man Legends 3, like what could have been. But when I played it for the first time, I'm thinking this is giving me such vibes of that, you know. But seeing that level design, seeing that 3D platforming, and it reminded me instantly of your Banjo-Kazooies, of your Jack and Daxter, of your Ratchet and Clank. And that's exactly where I came back to, Ratchet and Clank. I'm like, because first I thought Sunset Overdrive, the craziness and how you can do all this cool stuff. And then I thought that platforming was like the old school platforming. I'm like, Ratchet and Clank. There it is. What do you do in Ratchet and Clank? You run and gun.
Yep.
And you're platforming. So you mix a little bit of Ratchet and Clank with what they did in Sunset Overdrive, and I think you got a really cool recipe for what could be a really badass modern take on MetalStorm.
Yeah, because definitely with Ratchet and Clank, one of the biggest things about Ratchet and Clank that's so lovable is the more you use the weapon, the more powerful it gets, right? It levels up. That's something MetalStorm could definitely do in that type of game. The more weapons he uses. Also, on top of that, he can have his own little shop or little function in his ship where if he has enough points or whatever you do, you level up, you can order a secret care drop or care package to drop in. That's a new weapon unlock. You get that order in, or you can call out certain things to come help you out. But one of the things you got me triggering in my head, I was thinking Mario Galaxy, to the point where how cool would it be if the MetalStorm, the M308, had his own gravity pull ability? So anything that he can get, he can pull himself to that. And that's his gravity to that. Kind of like Mario, anytime he hops up on the planet, he's gravity pulled to that, and that's why he can run upside down and all that. How cool if you can turn that on and off going through the stage. So, if you need to get on this wall, you can gravity pull to that like a magnet, and you can walk across that wall, let go, and do all that. And that's where the Unrail makes more sense, because the Unrail basically is a magnet. If you play Jet Set Radio and Sunset Overdrive, it feels like a magnet is pulling you in. And you're stuck sliding on this, and that would make more sense of him being pulled on and do these rails and stuff. Because a boss fight on rails in MetalStorm would be so cool, like going down a tunnel and these enemies are coming at you. So it almost feels like a Space Harrier kind of style or something like that. Yeah. And so
and just think about the uniqueness of level design that you could do for puzzle solving, and by doing the whole gravity. Pull and everything, because that something like that. It's why I really praised Zelda, Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds, and he has that silly ability where he can become a painting on the wall.
Yeah,
and I thought that was so silly, but then as I played the game, I'm like, they incorporated this into so much with getting around with puzzle solving, and it became, and they even incorporated it into boss fights, and I thought it was one of the coolest things. Because it was just like, okay, they came up with something, they came up with an idea, and they married themselves to it and made it a big part of the game. And I feel like you could do that with this as well, with the different gravity. As soon as I saw that gravity swap, I'm like, that'd be so cool to do, and get a team like Insomniac that does really cool, because you could take Sunset Overdrive is pretty fast paced, and maybe Ratchet and Clank is not as fast paced. So but you could find a marriage in there, find a good medium where, there's some cases where it gets nuts, you're like, man, I can't believe I'm doing all this stuff. And it probably looks more flashy than what it is, but trigger that in with some really cool, boss fight sequences. I think it'd be really neat.
And let's talk about the boss fight for a second. What kind of boss fights would you like? Would you like the more big triumph kind of boss fights? Would you like more of enemies around you? What do you think would make, MetalStorm so badass to you as these boss fights?
Well, I think you could find a good, come up with some really cool gameplay designs, because that's one thing that I really, really enjoy about a game that does have boss fights. It's like, what are these mechanics? But it's just are these just enemies I have to fight? Is this more, or is it, or is there a certain way that I have to do this? To figure them out. Like in Zelda, they'd always give you the weapon you needed to beat the boss in the dungeon. It's hey, get familiar with this hammer, because you're gonna have to hammer the helmet off of this guy and shoot him right
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I can't shoot the arrow because he's wearing a helmet, and I got to hit him in the head with the helmet, or with the hammer. It's same thing with playing Mega Man. You pick a stage. Okay, I got his power. Well, his power is more effective against this other guy. The game doesn't tell you that. It's trial and error. All right, go over here and use it over here, and then you're gonna have a heck of a easier time beating him. And now once you've got him, then you can dart over here and get this guy, and you just one by one. I know that's kind of off topic, but that's kind of like in terms of game development, I'm not sure if there's any one answer, because I think you'd easily have room for both, where you would have smaller encounters, I guess you would say the word is smaller encounters, more challenge, but then you'd have like the big dude that has a mechanic. It's like, what is his mechanic? Just like you said, is it like a big moving level on rails where you've got to be moving the whole time and shooting and trying to figure out his pattern? Is it going to be crazy? Or is this, or just like you said earlier with that one, like you're kind of stuck in this square, and how you move, you got to get around stuff. It's like, I would love it, not for just to like, okay, I got a new weapon, and this weapon's useful against this guy, but more so gravity mechanic. Okay, I got to go over here. I got to do this because he's going to do this. And if it,
right.
And I need to get out of the way. Or maybe, like you said, he does it to you, and then now you can't, now what you've been doing for the first 6 hours of the game, you can't do anymore.
Right.
So now he changes it when I'm not ready for it. And now I've just, I think that'd be neat as well. So as far as like boss fights, I mean,
it seems like you want really good set pieces, basically.
Level design, I think, is where a big 3D MetalStorm would win. Is really unique, good level design.
Okay.
And also incorporating some really cool ideas with the bosses to utilize such, because in a game that's core mechanic is jumping up and down. Like when I saw that, I remember why that game stuck out to me when you said it, because I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that. And then I saw a video. Oh yeah, that's the one where you go, okay, cool, because, like, no pun intended, that really puts the whole game design element on its head, where it's like, now you're playing this level, and you're going through and like, all right, I gotta jump over these spikes, but it's, crap, I can't get up there. Well, you can if you jump and then switch gravity mid jump, and then now you're past them. And imagine how cool that would be to do stuff like that in the middle of a boss fight where you're under stress.
Yeah.
Where you got to figure out where you got to go, and you got to figure it out now.
So my last question is for you, is when it comes to the stages, like my choice, I'm pretty sure mine's going to be stage by stage and the way it is. Is yours going to, do you want this one to be for your pick that, or can you pick and choose where you want to go as long as you complete everything? You can just go in any order you want.
I would keep it pretty linear. Okay. Honestly, I would keep it pretty linear, at least for the first one. If you're gonna remake the first one where you got to get into the base, if you make a second one, you're not married to that stereotype. You can literally have it after you've done that first one. You could do anything you wanted with it.
Oh, okay.
But with that, if you're recreating that first one and you're trying to break into Star Killer Base, when I first saw it, don't tell me that no Star Wars fan didn't see Star Killer Base. I'm like, well, there's that. Okay, Force Awakens right up in here. But I mean, you've got to work your way in, and I don't have it segmented. Okay, as I said, it's areas, not open world, but they're big enough areas, because I feel like, I'm trying to think of some good game examples off the top of my head where it's not open world, but the areas are so big, you kind of feel like you're in open
Ratchet
world.
and Clank does that, right? Because they go to planet to planet, and then there's your playground for that moment, and then when you're done, you head out.
Yeah.
So it's basically like that. Yeah.
You have the area in like pre-base area. Say when you finally land in, you're not even really in the base yet. You're on the outskirts. You had to divert. You couldn't go right into the heavy payloads. So now this whole area, you got to get in there. So you have objectives. You have things you have to do in order to get in. And they have scouts. They have people on the outside. So you're having these little encounters, but they're mostly automated bots. As it all is. It's like, okay, I got that guy. No alarms raised. But just imagine, like, what it'd be like once you get in there and you're doing your thing, and you have scuffles. If you do have like enemies that can alert other enemies, and now you're being swarmed, can you imagine, like,
cool. Yeah.
like defense mechanisms or whatever, where you're like, okay, for this area, I got to disable this defense node, because if I don't and they see me and I have too big of an encounter, it's my ass. Mm-hmm. So like you would be encouraged to disable that, or find something. Maybe there's areas where you can't disable it and it's more stealthy.
Yeah, and before we even take our first break here, I do want to say is whatever game picks from the idea, especially yours, I want to be blown away of how big this base is. I want it to be like, I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
It almost feels like Vanquish that Platinum Games did, where when I first saw where we're going, I'm like, I'm going to be here for a while. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. And so that's the feel I want from MetalStorm, where it's like, when I come out of this, I'm going to feel like a badass.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So with that, that's our first game we presented, but it's not over. We have another one for you after the break. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Jeremy, a.k.a. the in-game boss.
And this is Jerron, a.k.a. the evil of Aku.
And I want to tell you about a show as part of the In-Game Boss program network called the In-Game Boss Podcast.
It's a podcast about fun topics and questions that challenge the listeners and each other.
And we are on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other listening services.
But don't forget to subscribe to social media, Facebook and Twitter.
So come by and enjoy the show.
Hey guys, this is Brando, and I'm the host of the Game Addicts podcast, a show where I cover the latest news in gaming and take a look back at some of gaming's best consoles, series, and games. With over 3 years of episodes in the back catalog, there's plenty of great episodes to sink your teeth into. So check out GameAddictsPodcast.com or download us on your favorite podcast platform. Into live streams, head over to twitch.tv/GameAddictsPlay for Let's Plays and to chat along with the podcast during the live recording. Still want more? Subscribe to our YouTube channel for your one-stop shop for everything we do. So what are you waiting for? It's time to level up and check out the Game Addicts Podcast.
And welcome back to the World Gaming Trade Show Part 2. I'm Jeremy. This is Brendan. Let's get right into the main event of this special show, this awesome monthly show. Definitely check it out. And don't forget that we both have our own separate shows that we personally do. On my network, just like this show, I have my In-Game Boss podcast. I also have a movie show called When Jeremy Met Nam and do a movie podcast. And I have a bunch of other shows. So definitely come to the network. You can find us on, all your favorite listening spots, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those places. It's in the description as you're listening to this. And then Brandon has his information he wants to give you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Over at the Game Addicts Podcast, we have our own website, GameAddictsPodcast.com. All those places that he listed where, In-Game Boss program is, that's where we're at too. You can hit us up on one of your favorite podcast platforms, hit that subscribe button, and have both of our awesome channels, both of our awesome shows. Get all that stuff. And, we also have some YouTube stuff. I do some stuff, my one-stop shop for everything I do, the podcast, gaming stuff. I did a complete run-through of a pretty recent game that just came out that I dedicated my entire life to for like 4 days. And, so that's there for your
best 4
enjoyment.
days forever, right?
Best 4 days,
best 4 days ever.
You know what? It was awesome. It was awesome. That's all I'll say about it. I had a lot of fun. But then you've also got a YouTube channel too where you've been starting to do some stuff as well.
Yeah, so I have 2 shows. If you're an arcade person and love arcade games, we have a game called The Cabinet Session that I do with my co-host of the In-Game Boss podcast, Jerron Williams, where we have so many arcade games that we want to go through and play. So definitely check that out. Our next one, by the time you hear this, is going to be out. I believe we're doing Mercs, the classic Mercs, awesome, top-down. Not Unreal Shooter, but just a shooter game. Check it out. But I also do another show called Buddy Up Gaming, where me and my buddy Jerome, we just pick random games that we want to just buddy up and play. And one of the games is making his return that we just actually finished recording. It'll be out probably next month for you. And that is Door Kicker Action Squad. Me and him just play 2 cops that bust through doors and take names. And there is some drama for us because we are just kind of bumbling a little bit here and there. He's killing innocent people. I got to give him hell. And so definitely check out both of those shows. They're both on YouTube. And while you're there, definitely just subscribe, just like his stuff. Subscribe. But let's get on to the main event. Brendan, bring us there, buddy.
So This one took me a minute to try and figure out what exactly I wanted to do, because as I said earlier, I wanted to take a break from some of the same style of game or same era, PS1, that late '90s. Like we've had a couple there already, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw it back. All right, so let's go over here. Let's check out my carts and see what I got. You threw MetalStorm at me, so I wanted to pick something that wasn't in that same genre, and lo and behold, I find this little gem. I remember back when I first started collecting, seeing this in a store for about, I think it was $40 at the time. And so you know what I'm doing. You can hear me right now. You can hear the little clackety clack. Well, okay, so there's no clackety clack there, but I'm looking that sucker up to see what's going for now. It went up. Loose. This game's gonna run you about $70 right now, and that is Soul Blazer. And what is Soul Blazer? Well, I'll tell you. Soul Blazer was made by a company called Enix, or Enix, however you want to pronounce it, however they describe it. Yes, this is pre-merger with Squaresoft, the one and only Squaresoft. They became, who would have thunk it, Square Enix. Back in the day, we actually had two awesome companies making all these RPGs and all these cool games. And at some point, they just fusion hard into this new company we have today that, depending on what you like, may or may not be up your alley. Maybe they're not up to the... Oh, that's another show. This game, Soul Blazer, I got to admit, I played its spiritual successor, its sister game first, Illusion of Gaia. You guys ever heard of that one? That one's a little bit more of a successful name. This game was the front runner for Illusion of Gaia. There was another game too that we never got over here. These three games are technically a loose trilogy, meaning that they're not really connected with each other, but they were all developed around the same engine, the same style of game. And that last game is called Terranigma, which I have never played. I've only ever seen video of it. But I saw this game for $40, and I said, I got to have it. So I went back, and it was gone. And I was angry. I was not very happy. I'm like, man, that Soul Blazer was gone.
Now,
and
question, how many days was it in between that time? Do you remember? Was it about a week?
No, because I saw it on Friday and mulled over the weekend, and at work I was talking to somebody about it. Might have been Mike. And he's like, go back and get it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I went there right after work and it was gone.
Okay.
So from Friday to Monday, it was gone. And the dude, the guy that was at the store there, that's no longer there, unfortunately. He goes, I can go check the system, see if we have any other, like at one of our other stores. I went, you do that. And he did. He goes, I got one. And it's over in this other town. We can actually just send it here to our store it won't cost you nothing, and you can just buy it. I'll be back. You let me know when it's in. They called me up and said, hey, Soul Blazer's in. I strolled in there, handed him the cash. He handed me the game. I came home and was a happy camper. Merry Christmas. Happy birthday to me. I can't remember. I think it was like August. I got it or whatever. But, man, it was cool because, when you think of cool action RPGs, Soul Blazer is not really the first place you go to. As I said, more people heard Illusion of Gaia. You might have heard of a series of games from this one, the Mana collection, like I don't know, Secret of Mana, another one of the big SNES RPGs, action RPGs at the time. In fact, you can almost say that there's probably a lot of like gameplay correlation between like what they were doing with Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, Terranigma, and then what they would go on to, like what Square would answer with Secret of Mana, Trials of Mana, which this is the collection of Mana that I showed him on camera that the audio listeners can't see. Pick this up. This is on Switch. I think you can get this on other platforms as well, but I got this around Christmas time from Best Buy for like $20. It was like, I jumped on that. I was like, yes, absolutely. But Soul Blazer, what makes Soul Blazer so cool? Well, Soul Blazer, as I said, it kind of paved the way for some of these kind of action RPGs. Zelda was doing their thing. A lot of there were some loose comparisons with a Zelda, which is kind of interesting for where I'm kind of going with my pick of developer to take over the reins of this one, because they might have had their hands in a Zelda or so. We'll see about that when we get there. But this kind of goes on everyone's forgotten list. When you think of that, you don't think of you think of Secret of Mana, you think of Illusion of Gaia, you think of Legend of Zelda. You don't necessarily think of Soul Blazer but when Soul Blazer was there first, man, they were there before it was cool. So, Soul Blazer. I'm see if I can remember.
I can tell you one thing I remember. I remember that game made sure you were playing that game, because when you started up, Soul Blazer was the first thing that just come right in your screen. It pops at you, and then it zooms back. Boom. And then I believe I'm right, fire starts coming up. I remember they were making sure, you are playing Soul Blazer, you are going to love it, enjoy it. And I like the fact that it's actually, compared to Secret of Mana, it was very colorful. Very colorful.
Yeah, I really liked the world design. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really cool and just really different for the time. Especially when you would compare it, directly to the next one, where it was I don't know if because it's not that it's devoid of colors. It's not like you're playing Fallout 3 where everything's gray or green, but it's just it didn't strike out as much. You know what I mean?
Right.
But man, it's not as story driven, as hardcore story driven as some RPGs would, like a Final Fantasy 3 or something like that, where there's a lot of characterization, there's a lot of twists and turns in the story. Not necessarily so here, but I feel like you have the grounds to tell a really cool story within the basis of what they have. You can expand on it, if that makes any sense to you guys. So who would I pick? I kind of stuck with the theme of not keeping it to the original. We are, in terms of kind of gameplay style, but we're going to open it up. As I said earlier, I really like the world design. So we're going to make this a world. We're going to make this bigger. We're going to be going around. We're going to be visiting some places. And I chose somebody who is pretty close knit. Now, granted, this is an Enix game, so Square's got, they got the IP to this. They ain't doing squat with it. So, Square, hey, call up Nintendo. Hey, we do some stuff with you. Maybe we can have one of your teams, I don't know, Monolith Soft.
Oh, you picking my territory. Okay.
So,
all right.
They have developed Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, X. Okay, cool, cool, awesome. But they worked on another game. Did you know they had their hands in with Breath of the Wild?
Yes, they did. Definitely the
so
world building.
Breath of the Wild was a group effort. Not a lot of people know that. And it makes sense for Nintendo, because when you think of, you mentioned Ubisoft or something earlier, we were just kind of shooting off about, maybe that was off air, talking about Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
And Ubisoft. And think about Ubisoft and how many teams they have. And when you beat an Ubisoft game and you don't skip the credits at the end, you're getting every name of every dude and gal that works at every studio that even thought about touching this game. And it is just a endless list. It's like trying to wait for that Marvel scene at the end of the movie. It's just is there something, or am I just watching this? But no, Monolith Soft, they did such a great job with the Xenoblade Chronicles games. I don't want to do that here. I want to keep it, I kind of want to marry the style that Soul Blazer brought in. I want to keep it more action, a little bit less, I'm not messing with the menus. I'm not doing that stuff. I don't have a battle area. I want that open kind of Breath of the Wild feel, but I want to bring it from their perspective with things that they've learned from doing Xenoblade, where it's let's make this a little bit more adventurous while keeping it that RPG factor right in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Monolith Soft is one of my favorite developers of all time. Surprised to this day that Nintendo bought them. Think they're a good choice. When you want something big, you want some big and with some great artwork from like you believe that you can go there when you see it. They are the ones to do that. And it's interesting too because they're definitely known to keep the Xeno name and everything. I mean, Xenogears, Xenosaga, and then Xeno to this, right? So for them to do this type of game would be interesting, so much to the part of the world building. Because for Soul Blazer, it was basically about saving the souls of people and bringing them back to life, right? And the question I have for you is, what interesting ideas would you want to do of bringing people back to the real world? And what would you like to do with that?
See, that's interesting. There's another game.
And games like that, for example, that I wrote down that I think that Soul Blazer inspired in a certain way. One, Dark Cloud, one of the big launch games for PS2. And then, of course, Enix, I think, even in-house used that for their Dragon Quest builders. Where you use the stuff to build the world and all that kind of stuff. And how cool to me personally is you can basically build your world differently than the way I want to build my world when I bring the souls back.
There was another Super Nintendo game I was trying to remember.
ActRaiser?
I don't think it was this one where it was kind of like part town simulator.
Was it ActRaiser?
Yes.
Yeah, it was ActRaiser.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you had your side scroller, dude, with a sword, and you're just like whacking out like you son of a bitch, and then you're like, all right, beat that level. Now what? All right, now it's time to play Farmville. So it's like it was a bit different, but no, I think that'd be really cool because you could bring in like the settlement idea, like that they kind of brought in like that Bethesda brought in with Fallout 4. Like I'm not repping Fallout or anything. I'm definitely Fallout. All Fallout. I got Fallout shirt and a hat today, but as annoying as that kind of got, and how like maybe tedious it was, like every 5 seconds your place is getting attacked. I think it'd be really cool if you were able to bring in some of that idea with like the builder aspect, because then it's like, all right, not only are you trying to save this world just by like beating the bad guy, you're taking a real active part in everything, trying to get this world back on its feet, get these people back on their feet. And so that like, you help them build and you're doing all this stuff and you got all these different things that you could do in these areas. And as you said, it could be my idea could be completely different from yours, and you can have maybe a couple different areas that you kind of really focus on in game. And of course, they could probably provide you with a couple more as like, hey, if you really want to dive into this, and as far as a side quest or something for you to do, and have this game take you on miles of fun. You have a couple that are required by story for you to keep up and help them out, but then just have like, I don't know, however many more you could think of to put in to really open up your creativeness. Have different areas of the world where that have different surrounding areas, and how could you properly put those into whether or not you're growing, or whether or not you have like a flowing waterfall, like would you build a dam or something? Yeah,
because I would imagine that's where you can get, saving the right souls. That's how you find your blacksmith to upgrade your weapons, find your tailor, And I just like the idea of, even though I'm saving these people, I can just struck the town way I want. And then when I go to the next section, I get to pick where I want to move that town at. Maybe I want to move it next door to it. Maybe I want to move it a little bit further down. Because, with Soul Blazer, you're basically, one moment you're in open land, next moment you're in the forest, saving more animals than humans. Don't ask me why. But, we can slowly start seeing you develop the way you want it, and then slowly seeing new ideas that you incorporate into that, because it has a link to the past kind of feel to it too.
Exactly.
With the dungeons and going through that, and the dungeons to me have to be really awesome, where you're seeing every time you defeat an enemy or you're doing something, you're slowly seeing like stars floating. That's the souls leaving to go to the land that you have created and all that. And I would like to have it where, you could set up back and forth. Like maybe you can pause and check your map of the world. We'll see what's going on there, and then go further in. I don't know how far we want to go the rabbit hole of these dungeons, where maybe there's checkpoints where you can exit out, then you can come back in and continue the voyage. I don't know what you're visioning there, but I definitely think there's a lot you can do with the world building that can also influence you to help you get further down in the dungeons of, completing and healing this world. And so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a way, mine's a pretty safe pick, because these guys are really well rounded and developed in making good quality RPGs. It just kind of what I'm thinking about is not. I don't want to tie it too closely to what they've already done. I kind of want them to experiment a little bit.
Okay.
And and to plug in some of that, like that was one thing about Breath of the Wild that I felt like was just that was half the fun. The openness to just go explore. Where's this way going to take me? Don't go that way. He's too hard. Okay.
Right.
You find out really quickly which way you're not supposed to go. But literally that's part of the fun. It's like being able to just explore. And I feel like there's not too many games that just let you go.
Yeah.
Didn't do that anymore.
Yeah. Discover this stuff yourself, what I find first, I want it to be different than what you found first, for the discovery and the conversation that we, discussed playing through the game. So, nothing's better than replaying the game and doing it a different way every single time. And it's a different story every single time. And Soul Blazer should have something like that, especially if you're bringing into you're not only exploring the world, but you're recreating the world at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, okay. Awesome. So, honestly, I thought you were going to go classic with it, and I thought you were going to pick Tokyo RPG Factory.
Oh.
I thought you were going to pick them only because they stick with the more 90s Super Nintendo stuff. But to be honest with you, that's not my pick for them, only because they get the classic down pretty well, but their execution is a little wobbly. I think that their recent game, I think is Onanaki, I think is pronounced right, or something like that. It's basically, tell you the truth, it has a Soul Blazer feel. I mean, you're going around helping, people, rest people, and you're basically the kind of concept that you're doing. You're rescuing people, same thing with that character. The group I picked is, I want this game to go back to the old school way, but I want it more in a 2.5D kind of style game. So it's not straight flat. It's kind of like a little more like, I guess you would say more like a diorama, like kind of like a box kind of feel, So the people I picked for this one are really good on the art. And I think that's what Soul Blazer needs. I think Soul Blazer needs a brush of great artwork. So the world that you make just feels like a great illustration of art, like a painting, a art piece that you're looking at. So I picked Supergiant Games. They're the ones that done games like Bastion, Transistor, and a new game that recently came out last year in December, Hades. And if you look it up and look at their artwork, the artwork is so beautiful. And I would love to see that going through the dungeons, defeating these enemies, seeing the Sultan, and going and building that stuff there. I just think it's so classical how they do their games. And I think that's the new angle I think Soul Blazer needs, in my opinion, just more of the art. Give it the Mana art feel. Because Mana has great art. They just have great artwork. I think, to tell you the truth, when it comes to fantasy and kind of cartoonish, they're the ones that nailed it. Final Fantasy's always been more, let's get with the realistic. But Mana always felt like, let's bring the more really fantasy artwork kind of feel. And I think Soul Blazer needs that. And on top of that, any other stuff that they've done. It's weird because like Dragon Quest to me has the artwork too. But I think Mana just makes it more artsy. And so I think just simply they should definitely be the ones that do that. As, same concept, you're going through the dungeons, doing all that kind of stuff. But I would also like this character to have some allies. Characters that you unlock will help you on your voyage going in. It doesn't have to be multiplayer. It can just be people that can kind of follow you and help you out, kind of like another little AI or something like that. They can help you out, like a partner or something like that. And you get to pick and choose who you want based on who you rescued, if they're warriors per se. And I think so on the point where as you're unlocking the town, this could work in your game too, is the side quests can be created of, maybe help find food for certain recipes, help the village, maybe hunt animals down. Since you brought the world back to animals, you can go hunting now. That could be an option. There's a lot of fun little side things you can do, like fishing, hunting, all this fun jazz. And on top of that, do we honestly just want him to just have just a sword? Maybe he can have an axe. You've met the Breath of the Wild. What he finds on the ground could be a weapon. How about Soul Blazer does that? Maybe he can find a cool weapon in the dungeon after defeating an enemy. He drops a weapon down. Let's use that. Then you can always get it sharpened at the blacksmith. There's a lot of variety that you can make it your character and make it the way you want to go through those dungeons. So, yeah, I pick Super Giant Games to really kind of bring in that work. And so.
Oh, no. Like, I could totally see that. I think that would be a great idea. Also, when you mention the allies, I think it'd be cool is that, you start unlocking allies and, toss it back to what I said about Mega Man, about you like, okay, so I got this power. This helps me against this next boss. Maybe some of your allies could actually be really beneficial to you in certain dungeons. So it's like, hey, this ally here is, you see his stats, you see what he's got, and there'll be a dungeon where you go in there and you realize I brought the wrong ally. Like this dude's like more of a heavy hitter, and I need somebody who's going to be like more of a like maybe like a mage guy, stays back, it hits things from afar. Maybe you get stuck in a dungeon where you can't go any further until you find something, or your ally already has it, or whatever, like, and then you guys are able to make your way through. I think that's a really cool new spin on it, where like, especially with if you're going for a more classic style, that is something that you would see more, having allies or having followers is something that's kind of been more in more modern day gaming, like your Bethesda titles, like Elder Scrolls, Fallout has that kind of stuff where you unlock a dude and then they follow you and it's like they help you out. You can talk to them. They have side quests specifically for them that you can kind of help them out, and they'll be more dedicated to you. Maybe if you help them out, maybe these allies you get are guys that are going to be really sequential to your settlements. It's like, when you leave, this guy's going to be in charge, or this gal's going to be in charge, and they're going to help lead these people.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, and I think Soul Blazer does it a lot in this game, is, when you're rescuing these people, there's a story behind them. And that's something we definitely need this game to have, is learning the history and where they've been and what have they gone through in the moment. There's going to be a lot of depression for these characters coming back after being captured by a demon, because he wants money. So that's basically what he wants out of it. But helping them, that's where the side quests come in. Like, you want to make them feel happy again and learn the backstory. And the allies, they can tell you their story as they go in, and you can feel their emotions and everything. Like, when you go to certain places, I want the allies to trigger a point. Like, I've been here before. I don't like this place. I'm scared. I don't want, I want to feel a little bit of emotion instead of just wandering warrior. I want to be a warrior that understands what everybody's doing and why I'm fighting for you kind of game. And so, yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is our last game. So, we did MetalStorm and Soul Blazer, but we would love to hear your thoughts on what developers you would like to see make these games. So remember, you can email me at ingameoffice@gmail.com. You can talk to me on Facebook and Twitter. All you have to do is type in In-Game Boss Program, but on Twitter, you can type in @ProgramIn and leave me your thoughts. Also, too, don't forget, even on Podbean or Apple Podcasts and all that, you can also leave comments there too and voice your opinion there. YouTube, whatever you feel like doing it. But let us know, who would you like to hear? Because we would love to talk about it on the show. Like, oh, we should have picked, that would have been a good pick for this and this and this. But I want to thank everybody for sitting in for another fantastic show of the World Gaming Trade Show. But this is not over yet. We have plenty of games in the back chamber. We have plenty of episodes to give you. This is only our 4th episode. We are a monthly show, so we got time to come up with more games and more creative ideas for you. Brandon, anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, man, that's it for me. It's been a great episode, and it's been really fun getting a chance to dust off the old Soul Blazer cart that I so happily was able to track down. And now that I've kind of rearranged my room setup, as Jeremy can see here, I've got my Super Nintendo hooked up. So
yeah,
it's on.
And for you listeners, all these games we mentioned, pop them in and play them again. Play them again and have a good time with them, because you might come up with something for us to talk about. Hell, because we're talking about this, I'm thinking about going back to play Illusion of Gaia because I want to beat that game. I'm like, I never got a chance to beat it. I'm like, I got time now. Let me go ahead and give it a try. So, but thank you so much. We will catch you on our next show. And